Alright guys, I'm back for the gaming news for this week, and let's get into it. So, Black Ops 6 confirmed for day one launch on Game Pass. We got confirmation that the COD series is coming to Game Pass, I guess, so expect that price to rise on Game Pass. What are we sitting at now? 18, 20 bucks for subscription? I don't know, I'll have to look at that, but Microsoft has now confirmed that Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is launching as a day one new release on Game Pass. More details about the game will be announced on June 9th. During the Xbox Game Showcase. So Black Ops 6 is in development at Treyarch and Raven Software, the systems from Activision Network and other global studios, and is reportedly launching this October. It is said to be the first Call of Duty game ever made on a 4-year development cycle, and expectations are high. So the devs at CD Projekt Red are finally done working on Cyberpunk. For the first time in a decade, no one is working on Cyberpunk 2077. You guys remember that game had a troubled launch. It's finally a really good game now, but basically they had to update it over time. They had like 17 developers on it in February, now they have 0. So they're all working on their other projects. CD Projekt Red confirms that it has a finished support for Cyberpunk 2077 to move on to The Witcher 4. It's not the only thing they have in development. They also have a side Witcher game, and they also have the sequel to Cyberpunk 2077. And I think there's one unknown variable and new IP that they're also working on too. So I'll put the graphic here up on the screen to which projects and their code names. There are now 4 different game projects in the works at CD Projekt Red, each of them in various stages of development. Witcher 4, which the company is codenamed Polaris, has 470 developers currently working on the title. The game is expected to begin full production sometime later this year. There are also an additional 39 developers working on a Witcher spin-off, which is known internally as Sirius. Additionally, there is a Cyberpunk 2077 sequel in development internally called Orion, which has 56 developers as of the end of April 2024. The 4th game CD Projekt Red is working on is Hatter, a standalone IP that only has 20 developers so far. So yeah, CD Projekt Red has got all of its developers finally working on other projects, and it sounds like Witcher 4 is probably closer to coming out of the whole group. So then we got the State of Play tomorrow. I just figured I'd talk about the PlayStation 5 Pro, because I saw an article on it, and whether they announce it tomorrow is beside the point, so figured we'd go over them for old time's sake. PlayStation 5 Pro, rumored release date, Windows specs, and every rumor so far. Amidst the leaks and reports, it looks like that Sony may be ready to introduce a mid-gen refresh of the PlayStation 5. Here's the specs of the current PlayStation has an 8-core, 16-thread Zen 2 at 3.5 GHz. They're just upping the clock speeds for the gigahertz. It's pretty much the same CPU. Most of the leaks so far have kind of adjudicated that. But then you got the PlayStation 5 with 36 CUs, which is compute units with using RDNA 2, basically. So I believe the Xbox and PlayStation models both use AMD CPUs and graphics cards. So that's the RDNA, the ray tracing, I think, or frame generation. The PlayStation 5 Pro has supposedly is going to have 60 compute units in RDNA 3. So to be continued. These aren't confirmed, guys. These are just from all the rumors so far. It seemed to be backed up by reports coming from insiders. But yeah, RDNA 3 is the next version of RDNA 2. But then we've got GPU clock speed, so 10.23 teraflops, 2.23 gigahertz on the PlayStation 5, 33.5 teraflops, and 2.18 gigahertz on the PlayStation 5 Pro. So GDDR6 memory, the PlayStation 5 has 16 gigabytes at 14 gigabytes per second. And the PlayStation 5 Pro will have 16 gigabytes at 18 gigabytes per second, so it's getting an increase of 3 on that one. And the memory available for games is 12.5 gigabytes on the PlayStation 5, 13.7 gigabytes on the PlayStation 5 Pro. And that's the, I would imagine the RAM actually located for actual game data. But the memory interface bandwidth, 256 bits on 448 gigabytes on the PlayStation 5, and 256 bits at 576 gigabytes on the PlayStation 5 Pro. So there's some modest increases here, but they're also going to have their version of upscaling in their console. So they have a proprietary upscaler that they're working on called PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. Documents acquired by Inside Gaming, it's claiming that Sony is internally aiming to deliver a 4K 120 FPS, 8K 60 FPS gaming experience using PSSR for future console generations. It's just a solid 4K we're going to get with the next iteration of the PlayStation 5 Pro. They can output 8K. They can't do 8K. So when it says 8K on the box, they're not exactly false advertising. It means that the console can do 8K from a technical perspective. It's got to be scaled based on what games you're playing. So you you're not actually doing 4K in most cases. So it sounds like these next-gen consoles are actually aiming for that 4K hallmark. Similar to the PlayStation 4 Pro, we're expecting the PlayStation 5 Pro to play all of the same games available on PlayStation 5 console, but with enhanced features and better performance overall. I'm still thinking they're going to be held back because they're kind of still holding on to that older generation of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox Ones. They're still making games for them, so whether this even utilizes any of the new technologies beside the point. So next up, guys, we got Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica are the next remakes for the franchise. Capcom reportedly continues to work on Resident Evil 9, not been officially announced. They started going back to the more traditional Resident Evil experiences with, like, you know, the more horror aspect to them, to the roots ever since the Resident Evil 7 haunted house with the crazy family. You guys know what I'm talking about. The remake train will continue for Resident Evil, with Resident Evil 0 reportedly being one of the 2 remakes in development at Capcom. Alongside the prequel, a reimagined Resident Evil Code Veronica is supposedly in the works too. They're really cranking out them freaking remakes, and so is Square Enix with their Final Fantasy. This seems to be remakes are where the money is for these two companies. YouTube introduces new playable games library. The new feature includes over 75 games that can play via a browser on the YouTube iOS app. Over the past few months, the game library referred to YouTube as Playables has been made available to select users in certain markets, but the company announced this week Playable is being expanded. Playables can be accessed via user, browser, or iOS devices. No word yet on Android compatibility, and the current selection consists of simple yet engaging games similar to those found on Google Play and App Store. Classics like chess and billiards to modern titles like Angry Birds. YouTube's Playables collection has games spanning multiple genres, and it's mostly just kind of like indie stuff and like most mobile games you would think of, like Clash of Clans and stuff like that. I would think of regarding the introduction. Not everyone can access the games yet, but YouTube has assured users that the new features will be accessible for all in the near future. Even as Google Stadia failed, YouTube's definitely trying. But prior to its closure, Google Stadia featured YouTube integration. Google wanted users to be able to start playing games directly via video ads. The service is no more, with Google also shutting down its first-party development team. A little too early for people's tastes there with that streaming shit.
Check out both my Twitter for news I don't get in vid form. I also upload on TikTok and Instagram.